Cult of the Lamb captures pretty much every facet of its design perfectly. The base building has lots of unlockable cosmetics, building types, and resource generators that tie in interestingly with the adventuring portion of the game. And I say pretty much perfect instead of perfect because, unfortunately, despite my love for Cult of the Lamb, it fails to capture the one thing I prioritize most in games like this. It falls severely short in one pivotal area as a roguelite. But obviously, I am not talking about the aesthetics. The presentation is easily what captures everyone's eye the quickest, and no one can fault you for that. The expressions, characters, and even darker humor is equal parts disturbing and cute. There's even adorable little touches like the fact that elderly members of your cult will take a little bit longer to get to sermons than your younger followers. Your villagers will smile while doing practically anything from chopping down trees to getting taken into the abyss. But what is Cult of the Lamb exactly? Well, I'll tell you what it isn't. Originally, I thought the adventuring would be the main focus, with light base building aspects being a nice diversion between runs. I figured the dungeon part would be where the team put most of their focus, and cultivating your cult would be a well-deserved break with simple but serviceable resource management divvying up the action. Turns out that is the exact opposite of what is actually true. While there's a decent amount of adventuring to be had, the crux of your time will be spent tending to your followers, making sure they don't usurp you, become unhappy, or even get sick. There's a crunchy amount of systems that stem from different buildings, resource gathering spots, and most importantly, your followers themselves. You'll quickly get into the cycle of routinely doing your sermons before tending to your crops and poring over different unlock trees. Spending time out in the field to defeat the game's major bosses is fun for a while, but I found that the more hours I sunk into Cult of the Lamb, the more I was enjoying parts of the game that I didn't exactly expect to. Cult has some nice feeling weapons and a fun dodge roll, but there's hardly anything you're gonna see here that you haven't seen done in other titles and done better. Combat is fast and punchy, sure, but after a while of rolling your way through dozens of dungeon rooms, you'll be hard-pressed to not long for more. I don't expect a moveset the size of a game like Bayonetta or anything, but if you're going to spend so much of your time in this title fighting stuff, only having two methods of attack just isn't going to be sufficient a lot of the time. Hades gives you not only a standard and special attack, but a magic cast, dash strike, and in some cases, a move you can charge. These additional moves aren't necessarily the missing ingredient to Lamb's combat system, even in a game like Death's Door or Volgar the Viking, where you don't have a ton of different attacks. You'll find that a lot of your entertainment value comes from the different ways enemies approach you and force you to be clever with your positioning. Yet Lamb doesn't do much favors for itself in this regard either. The way you'll approach enemies in its opening area is the way you'll approach more than 90% of foes for the rest of the game. What's unfortunate is that it slowly unveils tons of different mechanics and base building types as you progress through the story, yet the combat never gets the same love. I was hoping to unlock something, anything to expand beyond just the two attacks I have, yet that moment never came. The roguelite boom has been upon us for more than a little bit now. People are going to make these comparisons. Going through an ever-changing cave or dungeon is a huge part of a lot of people's gaming diet these days, and if you aren't firing on all cylinders, it's going to be hard to not just switch over to one of the giant titles already dominating the genre. Before long, Lamb's dungeon segments dissolve into very humdrum, been there done that fights with little enemy and weapon variety, not only next to its contemporaries, but as a video game all its own, and I still really think you should play it. Why? Well, a handful of reasons. One is that because of the time and commitment this team has put into the base building and management sim parts of the game, having one part of it fall short means that there's still a decent amount of quality content. I liken Cult of the Lamb to Moonlighter, which is a game where you go dungeon delving for ancient artifacts and materials before selling them off to local villagers. The combat in that game is far from the best. Don't get me wrong, it gets the job done, but it's when that combat is paired with the progression system of building up your shop for the better that Moonlighter really shines, and I think a lot of that logic rings true in Cult of the Lamb. Your home is littered with crops to harvest, items to salvage, and glowing white bars that provide pickups which plop and bounce with all the right sound and visual cues for your dopamine sensors. It honestly reminded me of a mobile game at times. None of this would matter if seeing your cult thrive wasn't satisfying, and by all means it is, but you'll almost always have something to do or worry about, and whether or not that's a detriment to you is going to fall down to your personal taste. You can't possibly do everything you need to in one in-game day. Something will always have to be overlooked or not tended to. This is probably by design so that the player is in perpetual motion, making interesting decisions, but I can still see how this would be stressful. Even if the constant management does get on your nerves, it's worth putting up with to see the atmosphere your followers cultivate. Watching my very first follower try to revolt against me was heartbreaking at first, but after some long talks and lengthy confinement, I was able to squash the beef so that we could all happily continue on with our sermons. You also have no real reason to choose any of the other animal skins once you unlock the capybara one. It has no gameplay significance, but that doesn't change the fact that it's completely true. Almost all areas abide by the same in-game time, by the way. Sometimes you'll really want to finish these dungeons as fast as you can so that you can go back to your base without everything being in complete disarray, which makes for an interesting challenge. For as amazing as its presentation is, and for as deep as some of its systems go, the combat being run-of-the-mill unfortunately means that Cult of the Lamb probably won't live up to its predecessors like Hades or the Binding of Isaac. By the end of the campaign, your cult will be fine, and so will your abilities. The weapons and boons offered won't be nearly enough to justify multiple playthroughs and builds, though I did enjoy the option to revisit old areas to get more of a challenge out of stages that you liked. Make sure you go in with the right expectations and don't mind a good amount of management sim in your roguelike. Here's a video I did on Cuphead. I know you hear it a lot on the platform, but if you enjoyed what you saw today, please do hit the subscribe button and like the video. I'd be forever thankful. There's also a link to our really active Discord server if you'd like to post about your Cult of the Lamb runs in there. We're trying to hit the 500 member mark. It's a super lively place. I think you'll really enjoy it. Thanks so much, and have a wonderful night. Booba.